Hello, my name is Duncan, I go by two different usernames online, and I'm gonna answer the question, how quickly can you beat Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition? Now, unlike a typical speedrun where the goal is to beat the game in the lowest amount of real elapsed time, this video is focused on the in-game clock, which keeps track of unpaused time spent playing, time spent traveling, and time spent resting. If you're unfamiliar with the game, Baldur's Gate is a Dungeons & Dragons computer role-playing game released in 1998. The Enhanced Edition, a version which updated the game to run on modern systems and added some extra content, was released in 2013. In September of 2021, I started challenging myself to complete the game fast, finishing each playthrough with a lower final save time than the one before. Naturally, I began to wonder, what's the record for the fastest completion of the game? I looked around on the Beamdog forums and found a thread from December of 2017 where user Grand0 had posted a final save time of 18 days and 1 hour. This is the earliest entry I've been able to find for this run category. In October of 2021, two other runners joined the competition, users Sarevok57 and J Mary, who both posted new record final save times of 12 days and 22 hours. As of the making of this video, J Mary held the record with an exact 95,120 in-game seconds. On June 28, 2022, I recorded a run that beat this time by 4 in-game hours, and I am proud to present to you all the character that accomplished it. Meet Lainey, the Elven Fighter Mage Thief. With only one level up to her name, Lainey defeated the final boss of the game less than 2 weeks after her adventure started. Her secret involved chugging, casting, snorting, and otherwise rampantly abusing every performance-enhancing substance known to the Forgotten Realms. Through them, Lainey was able to temporarily meet or exceed the capabilities of a silverback gorilla with a spellbook. The challenge of this run lies in getting the potions and scrolls Lainey needs to succeed, while trying to stick to the most direct route between all story beats. Because Lainey's trying to go fast, she doesn't get the privilege of grinding for level ups, nor can she go out of her way to acquire powerful magic weapons. On top of all this, there are a few rules that all the other runners have been playing by. In no particular order, these constraints are: the challenge must be completed on an unmodified version of the game. I've made a single negligible exception to this rule, which I'll explain later on when it becomes relevant. The game's difficulty must be set to core difficulty or higher. The maximize hit dice and gore options must be disabled in the game's settings. Lastly, and this rule is mostly informal, try to beat the game without save scumming. Now that we've got all the boring details out of the way, let's create Lainey and learn about her 2-week vacation in the Sword Coast. We're gonna go through Lainey's creation really fast, so we'll only be reviewing the crucial choices we make in building her. For her race, we pick Elf for the Dexterity, Longsword Thako, and Thieving skill bonuses. For her class, Fighter Mage Thief gives her access to all weapons, armors, scrolls, wands, and thieving skills. Lawful Neutral gives her a Ferret. This one's complicated, so I'm going to discuss it later. For stats, we dump Int and Wiz to their minimums while pumping Strength, Dexterity, and Charisma to the max. I budgeted for a total roll of 75 points because that's the lowest array the game will generate. We put 2 pips into Longsword and Sling proficiencies for extra damage and Thako bonuses. We then set Open Locks to 57 points and dump her remaining skill points into Detect Illusion. For spells, we pick Find Familiar and Friends, preparing Find Familiar. Both of these spells are only going to be cast once each, but they both play an important role in the early stages of the run. We have to make sure to pick the blue that matches the color of her dress, and we give her the relaxed personality. After naming her, we do one last review of everything to make sure it's correct, and so that the advanced players can read her sheet at a glance. And then, after all that, we pick the core rules difficulty and start her adventure.
Nestled atop the cliffs that rise from the Sword Coast for an unplanned and unexpected journey.
Now, I know I said that all the nitty-gritty stuff is behind us, but we have one last little bit to get through, and that is options and scripts. The options menu shows off that I'm playing by the rules, namely that gore and maximize hit dice are both disabled, and the scripts control how Lainey acts when not given any direction. I usually prefer to disable every script except for find traps, but I do occasionally go back and turn the attacked enemy's script on. Lainey starts her morning by casting Find Familiar, summoning a ferret. She names him Negi, in honor of the character who held the record at the time of recording. She immediately scoops Neggy up and puts him in her backpack, then walks into Winthrop's inn. Inside the inn, Lainey has a chat with Firebead Elvenhair, who asks her to fetch a scroll of Identify from a monk named Teftoril. She then goes to the kitchen and introduces herself to some visiting nobles, and with her 18 charisma and sterling reputation, convinces them to store their valuable jewelry in a strong box upstairs. Once they vacate, Lainey burglarizes a dresser in Winthrop's room for some scrolls. Lainey then heads upstairs and turns the place upside down, yoinking every item she can find. Her 57 points of open locks is the bare minimum required to break into the noble's strongbox, from which she steals a very valuable star sapphire. She then goes across the hall to mug the only witness to her crimes, attempting to knock him out. I say attempting because, well, she has a very rough go of it. While she whiffs, if any of you are wondering why a lawful neutral character would instantly mug people, I would please ask that you not think too hard about it. This is all very important for saving the world, trust me. Lainey goes back downstairs and sells all of her ill-gotten plunder to the innkeeper. He runs a small general store from which she purchases a sling, 40 bullets, and 20 crossbow bolts. She then heads outside and starts to run a few errands. Lainey can afford to waste some time here as there is a cutscene that is hard-coded to advance the clock to midnight of the day she leaves. The clock begins at 7 AM on day 0, so as long as she spends fewer than 17 hours here in Candlekeep, Lainey progresses the game at the same pace as someone who heads straight for the exit.
Gotcha.
While in town, there are a few objectives she hopes to accomplish, which I'll put on screen now. Lainey already completed step 1 of her list, and we're speeding up these next 2 steps as well. Lainey trades the crossbow bolts she purchased for a +1 dagger, which she'll sell later on for 150 gold. She also loots a footlocker for an antidote and a long sword belonging to Hull, the gate guard. He woke up hungover today and he went on guard duty without it, and Lainey could return it to him for some XP and gold. However, she's playing Finders Keepers, and Hull's longsword is going to be her weapon of choice for the run. Next up, Lainey goes to the Gate Warden to participate in the group combat tutorial. This section is meant to teach Lainey how to command friends in a fight, but Lainey has something more mischievous in mind. The companions down here join her for the fight, but immediately leave after she's done practicing. They have some really nice gear on them, which usually can't be smuggled out, but Lainey has a plan to do just that. She commands each companion to give all of their important items to Osprey, and then releases Neggy from her backpack just as the illusory enemies start attacking. While her friends go to fight off the illusions, Neggy uses his innate pickpockets ability to steal all of the items off the Osprey. Neggy has an inventory all his own, which we can access later by picking him back up. After everything's been stolen, Lainey immediately says she's done with the practice and is sent back outside. The Gate Warden frisks her, making sure that she didn't take anything, but he doesn't think to search Neggy. For being such a good boy, Lainey pets Neggy and then picks him up, acquiring more drip than she can comfortably carry.
Oof, I dropped something. Could you pick it up for me?
Lainey decks herself out in her new clothes and grabs the wands off of the ground. She then walks into the local hospital and lies about needing medicine, getting a potion of healing for her efforts. Lainey dashes past Hull on her way to the Temple of Ogma, where she gets the +1 dagger identified. Next, she says hello to Nessa the cow, who has stashed Flydia's book in the hay bales at the back of the pen. Lainey dusts the straw off the book and returns it to Flydia, earning a gemstone as payment. Getting ready for bed, Lainey prepares a cast of Friends, which will be the last spell she ever prepares in her spellbook. She then heads into the inn, pawns off some junk to Winthrop, and then cashes in on the only night's rest she's going to get for the next 2 weeks. After waking up, Lainey leaves the inn and finds Teftoril, who gives her the scroll of Identify that Firebead mentioned. Lainey then casually gets the plot of the game spoiled for her as she saunters on over to Gorion. Imoen, Lainey's childhood friend, stops her to try and talk to her, but Lainey rudely dismisses her as she prepares to leave and face her destiny.
Glad I have found you. Listen carefully. If we ever become separated, it is imperative that you make your way to the Friendly Arm Inn. There you will meet Khalid and Jahira. They have long been my friends, and you can trust them. Let's hurry, child. The night can only get worse, so we must find shelter soon. Don't worry. I'll explain everything as soon as there is time. Wait, there is something wrong. We are in an ambush. Prepare yourselves.
So, now that Lainey is out of Candlekeep, the race against the clock officially begins, and every second counts. Lainey taps the southern zone border to reveal High Hedge, before chatting with Imoen, who's been stalking her since Candlekeep like all good friends do. As a sorry for your loss present, Imoen hands over her potions and a wand of magic missiles, accidentally dropping her shortbow in the process. Lainey walks up the road and meets Zar and Montaron, who gives her an extra healing potion on account of how charming she is. They agree to join her on the condition that Lainey accompanies them to Nashkel. As a token of goodwill, the duo fork over all of their potions and scrolls, and Montaron even gives Lainey his armor, accidentally dropping his short sword in the process. Zar drops his dagger as well, but he did that on purpose. He's just kind of weird like that.
Oh, you bet.
Yep, I've done had enough of this.
What's the story?
While the rest of them talk, Imoen searches a nearby tree for a hidden diamond. Once she grabs it, the whole crew meets up at the eastern zone border, revealing the Lion's Way before traveling to High Hedge.
And dandy.
After 8 hours of walking, Imoen gives the diamond to Lainey, who is busy explaining the plan. In this area, there are some skeletons that can spawn on the way to Thalantir, the wizard who sells magic items. Imoen, Zar, and Montaron are to serve as linebackers, distracting the skeletons long enough for Lainey to get to the wizard without dying. Zar goes to distract the skeleton, but he's really bad at his job, and Lainey suffers a crit because of that. That's alright though, Lainey drinks a potion to recover the lost HP, and Zar dies off screen a moment later, which Montaron really appreciates.
And the mad wizard falls!
What's the story? Yep.
Me the trouble.
Lainey leaves the others outside as she goes in to talk with Thalantir, casting friends on herself for better shopping prices. Lainey has a very curated shopping list, and she needs a lot of gold to get everything she wants. As a fundraiser, she sells off almost all of her scrolls, potions, and wands, leaving only the Oils of Speed, Tethtoral's Identify Scroll, and the 4-use Wand of Magic Missiles. She then buys a bunch of items from Thalantir, displayed on screen now. Each of these items, except the Scrolls of Blindness, play a crucial part in the chapters ahead. Everything of value Lainey acquired before this point is just barely enough to fund her shopping spree. Now that she's done shopping, Lainey takes a moment to reorganize her inventory and then kicks Imoen and Montaron out of the party before traveling east to Baragost. She doesn't need to kick Zar out because he's dead. Lainey skirts around the edge of Baragost, heading directly south without talking to any of the locals.
Not a problem.
On the roads south of Baragost, Lainey heads into the woods to track down a hobgoblin with some fancy boots. She needs to kill him fast, though, as there are these 2 Ogrelons that start chasing after her from the road. She uses the Scroll of Sleep next to where the hobgoblin will be, and then moves in to attack him with her sling. He fails the saving throw, falling asleep just in time to guarantee a hit. Lainey quickly plunders her very first kill, yoinking the boots of stealth off of his body. She then heads south before the Ogrelons catch up, and traverses through the wilderness without trouble until she at last reaches Nashkel, concluding Chapter 1 and beginning Chapter 2. Lainey begins Chapter 2 by throwing away Montaron's armor. She won't be needing it anymore as she's about to pick up an upgrade. Heading south to a local farm, she digs up an Ankeg plate, which is the best armor she will find all game. Lainey also yawns, which is a terrible omen. Every time she yawns, she gets a point of fatigue. which applies a stacking penalty to all of her die rolls for the remainder of the run.
Oh, we've done so much today. Maybe it's time for a quick nap. Not a problem.
There's a carnival in town, so Lainey goes to enjoy some carnival drinks. She heads into a merchant's tent and tries to break into his slushy machines. Lainey loots the first machine without any problems, but the next one is locked up tight. She needs to drink one of the potions of perception that she bought from High Hedge in order to break into it. She grabs every potion she can find and then runs back to Nashkel before the police arrive. Okay, so earlier on I said that there was one slight modification made to my game and that I would explain it later. Well, that later is now. When traveling south to the Nashkel mines from Nashkel, there is a 20% chance to randomly encounter hobgoblins. Now this ambush is unique to the Enhanced Edition as it stems from the new companion Dorn. We need this encounter to achieve the best time because Beamdog messed up when programming this zone. It's located halfway between Nashkel and Nashkel mines, and so it takes 2 hours to travel there out of the usual 4. But when traveling out of the ambush site, you immediately arrive at the mines, shaving off those remaining 2 hours of travel. I modified the game to increase the rates of the encounter occurring from 20% to 99%. I tried several times to do an unmodified run, but it took about 15 minutes to make it this far on a proper attempt, and if you didn't get lucky with that 20% chance, the run was ruined. This means I would have to waste, on average, 1 hour on attempts that would never have a chance of beating the record for every attempt that could. I took to the forums looking to see if there was a way to rig the RNG, to no avail. I had a particularly bad streak of 27 failed attempts in a row before I decided to make this modification. Everything accomplished in this run can still be done in the base game, I just didn't have the patience to keep getting unlucky. Now that all that unpleasant business is behind us, back to the run. Lainey escapes the hobgoblins, taking some damage from a crit on the way out. When she arrives at the Nashkel mines, she immediately uses the tutorial's Oil of Speed, hastening herself for an hour. She runs west to a tree, consuming the Carnival's Potion of Heroism as she goes. She searches the tree for a hidden Wand of Frost, which she identifies with Tethtoral's scroll, and as she makes her way to the mine's entrance, she consumes the Potion of Fire Giant Strength, again from the Carnival. She abides by the law for once and gets permission to enter the mine, using one of her 3 scrolls of invisibility just before heading in.
Take a look at me mine, do you?
Stand away, citizen!
Yep.
There's a few dangers Lainey needs to look out for as she traverses the mine. This is the first real dungeon of the game, and it's full of monsters and traps, both of which are trivialized by invisibility. But Lainey also has to make sure not to talk to anyone, attack anything, or search any minecarts, as any of those will end her invisibility early. Lainey has to pause occasionally to detect traps in front of her before she can disarm them and move on. Her base find trap skill is high enough to disarm these thanks to her high dexterity, but if that wasn't the case, the Potion of Perception she used earlier is still in effect and is still boosting her thieving skills.
Yep.
Lainey makes her way all the way to the deepest part of the mine, where she enters Mullahay's lounge and sets eyes on the first boss of the game.
Gotcha.
Ay, 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 ay.
What? How you get in here?
Mullahay desperately begs for mercy, but the backstab and the queued up Wand of Frost seal his doom, with the wand dealing more than enough damage to kill him just as the dialogue box closes. Lainey takes his gold, his bling, his sneakers, the potions from his chest, and 2 of his scrolls, one of sleep and one of web. She then uses a second scroll of invisibility on herself and starts sneaking out of the mine the way she came in, concluding Chapter 2 and beginning Chapter 3.
It is certain that the death of Mullay that currently plague the Coast Way.
As Lainey sneaks out of the mine, she reviews a couple of letters that Mullahay had on him, revealing a connection between him and the bandits operating in the region. Lainey needs to steal some letters from the bandits' camp in order to complete Chapter 3 and get one step closer towards revenge. Just one small problem, Lainey doesn't know where that camp is. In order to discover it, she'll have to talk to some friendly neighborhood bandits. The invisibility spell on her lasts for 12 hours, so Lainey travels north completely unnoticed as far as the Lion's Way. When she gets there, Lainey wanders off-roads to have a rather heated discussion with a dude named Deke and all of his best buddies. Without his boyfriends providing backup, Deke has no choice but to surrender. The very instant he tells Lainey where the bandit camp is, she runs off, leaving him alone in the woods. Traveling north, Lainey passes by the Friendly Arm Inn, which she never goes into. Skirting around the outside, she spots a pretty ring in a bush near the gate, which she can sell later for a bunch of money. Lainey then spends a minute rearranging her inventory. She puts the Potion of Insulation and the Scrolls of Shield from High Hedge onto her belt, along with Monteron's Oil of Speed and the Carnival's Potion of Invisibility. Once all of those are at the ready, she heads north past the Friendly Arm Inn's walls and travels to the Ankeg Zone before finally arriving at the bandit camp. Now, again, Lainey's objective is to grab a few letters from the biggest tent in the camp. She doesn't want to do any fighting, so instead she gets ready to sneak. She takes off her armor so that she can use her stealth ability and starts drinking all the potions on her belt as she maneuvers unseen through the woods. She also casts Shield as a precaution in case she gets spotted, and drinks the Potion of Insulation just before sneaking into one of the tents. There's a scroll of Fireball in a chest at the back of this one, which will come in handy next chapter.
Can you see me? Right.
She sneaks her way up to the big tent and finds the chest with her goodies in it at the back. Unfortunately, the chest is trapped and will cast Lightning Bolt. Thankfully, the insulation effect in Mullahay's boots stack to provide 100% lightning resistance, so Lainey can open the chest and pilfer without taking any damage. The prisoner next to her dies from this trap, but nobody cares about him. She grabs the letters, lots of gold, and some enchanted gauntlets before sneaking out of the camp, ending Chapter 3 and beginning Chapter 4.
Can you see me? Didn't think so.
Mullahay and Tazok have proven to be nothing more than puppets, and the foreboding Cloakwood Forest is your next target.
Lainey speed reads the letters that she stole as she leaves the tent. They point towards a hidden base in the Cloakwood and a bad guy named Deviorn giving orders. The goal for this chapter is to kill him. Lainey ditches the letters and heads back to the Friendly Arm Inn, which is the fastest route to get to these woods. Some hobgoblins try to mug her on the road, but she just walks away from them.
Yep.
While Lainey gets chased by hobgoblins, I'd like to take a moment to say that this is the most taxing chapter of the entire run. The Cloakwood is a wilderness mega-dungeon. Lainey has to travel more than 3 days to get to Deviorn, and then has to travel that same distance to make it back out. She's going to gain several more points of fatigue, and because she hasn't leveled up yet, she is too weak to challenge any enemies in this area to a fair fight. Lainey readies the Potion of Freedom from High Hedge as she enters the first part of the Cloakwood. It's smooth sailing through this area, but the second part of the woods gets trickier. There's a bunch of nasty monsters and some hidden web traps ahead that Lainey needs to bypass. Quick word of warning, webs are loud and there will be 3 of them triggering within the next few seconds. Lainey drinks the Potion of Freedom, which renders her immune to the restraining effect of the webs. She also takes off her armor to enable thieving skills, sneaking past the spiders and ettercaps on her way to the next area. Anytime Lainey travels in the Cloakwood, there's a chance she gets ambushed by some very mean monsters. She can run from these fights easily, but most of the enemies here can poison her, and she doesn't have any way to cure that. Lainey makes sure to equip her armor before she travels between areas as a precaution against just that.
You have been waylaid by enemies
Fine and
must
dandy.
defend yourself.
Yep.
In the third area of the Cloakwood, Lainey recruits a very charming companion named Eldoth, who's being attacked by a bear. Disregarding the danger, Eldoth shares a drink with Lainey and explains that he has gaslit a noblewoman named Ski into thinking that they're in love so he can hold her for ransom. Lainey is so impressed by him that she lets Eldoth tag along, rescuing him from the bear in the process.
Hey, oh, you bet.
The fourth area of the Cloakwood is pretty boring. There's another ambush on the way to it that Lainey and Eldoth skip past. There's also a Hamadryad that attempts to dire charm Lainey, but her elven resistance to charm negates it entirely. This last area of the Cloakwood is the entrance to Deviorn's secret base. Lainey equips Eldoth with some of her strongest remaining tools, the last Scroll of Sleep and one of the potions of explosions from High Hedge, as well as the Scroll of Fireball from the bandit camp. For herself, she readies 2 potions of perception, a potion of absorption, and her last oil of
Maybe
speed.
it's time for a quick
While Lainey buffs up at the entrance, Eldoth goes to disable the guards.
Don't bore.
Hey,
The 2 sleeping bandits pose no threat to Lainey, who continues to chug potions while she dispatches them with her sling. After she kills them, Lainey and Eldoth get ready to nuke the next group of enemies. There's a particularly scary fighter among them named Drasus wearing a pair of Jordans that Lainey needs. With some luck and cheesy use of off-screen webs, Lainey and Eldoth take him and 2 of his cronies down, securing the boots of speed for Lainey. Before the experience drop hits, Lainey kicks Eldoth out of the party, funneling all the XP into her and gaining her first level up.
Don't bore.
Lainey's level up goes into Thief, and she invests all 25 skill points she earns into Detect Illusions. She'll need that as high as it can go to take out Deviorn easily. With her new boots and haste effect on, Lainey casts her last Scroll of Invisibility and zooms past the guards, casting Shield on herself as protection against an upcoming magic missile trap. With how fast she's moving, it can be difficult to control Lainey, and she needs to maneuver carefully in order to avoid breaking her invisibility. It turns out that the Scroll of Shield and the Potion of Absorption were both worthless, as Lainey moves fast enough to avoid triggering the magic missile and lightning bolt traps in the hallway. Lainey continues unseen through the dungeon, stopping only to drink the Potion of Frost Giant Strength from Drasus' corpse. After 3 whole floors of sneaking, Lainey finally arrives at Deviorn's secret bedroom.
Drake? What? Where's the door hole? Goes right there. See, I drew it with a magic marker.
There are several traps right in front of Lainey that she would not be able to detect and disarm without the help of the perception potions. Disarming them allows her to confront Deviorn. While she works to dispel his mirror image with her Detect Illusion skill, she triggers a glyph of warding, which fizzles against both of them. Lainey's high Detect Illusions skill allows her to bypass the mirror image spell and discover the true Deviorn in a single round. She backstabs him and blasts him with the Wand of Frost before he teleports to another room. Before he comes back, Lainey hides in a corner and puts on the Boots of Stealth, sneaking back out. The second blast from Wand of Frost is enough to kill him, concluding Chapter 4 and beginning Chapter 5.
You have dealt a great blow to the organization known as the Iron Throne that plagues the citizens of the Sword Coast.
Chapter 5 is easy peasy compared to Chapter 4. From the letters found on Deviorn's body, Lainey learns that an organization called the Iron Throne, located in the eponymous city of Baldur's Gate, has been behind all the banditry and iron problems in the area. The goal for this chapter is to become a spy, investigating the organization for wrongdoing. The Wand of Frost froze Deviorn into a statue of ice, so Lainey has to use her Wand of Magic Missiles to shatter him open and loot his body.
Can you see
She
me?
kept the wand around for this exact purpose, but she's been lucky so far with not freezing Mullahay or Drasus. Lainey grabs Deviorn's robe, bracers, and another Scroll of Shield before sneaking out of the mine, passing poor Eldoth on her way out.
right.
Lainey travels back to the fishing village with all the Ankegs, outrunning an ambush with ease thanks to her Boots of Speed. She rushes past the Ankeg hive and travels to the bridge leading into Baldur's Gate. She earned enough XP from killing Deviorn to level up, but Lainey doesn't need levels for the rest of the run, so she's just gonna ignore that little plus sign next to her portrait. From here on out, her strength will be entirely fueled by sleep deprivation and performance-enhancing substances. Speaking of sleep deprivation, Lainey goes a bit cuckoo when introducing herself to the crossing guard. He summons his captain, Scar, who invites Lainey to investigate a small warehouse in the city on behalf of the Flaming Fist. Lainey declines, and Scar keeps the invitation open just in case she reconsiders. Lainey meets the last of her companions, a gnome named Quail, just outside the gates of the city. She asks him to join, walks 5 steps with him, and then kicks him out. She'll be back for him later, but with his short, unhastened legs, he would just slow her down right now.
What do you need? Not a problem.
When Lainey first enters the city of Baldur's Gate, some weird wizard in red robes calls her a hoe and tries to speak with her. She evades him by ducking into the nearby shop of Silence. She meets the owner, an outspoken woman named Silence, and buys a potion of master thievery so she can justify entering the store. Once the wizard leaves, Lainey travels south to reveal a new area of the city, before heading to Sorceress Sundries, the biggest magic items shop in the game.
Be ye friend or be ye dead?
Oh, you bet. Oh, you bet.
In the shop, Lainey unequips every item she intends to sell. She identifies all of the magical goodies she's acquired up to this point, before selling most of her possessions, leaving only her potions, Hull's longsword, the Boots of Speed, Deviorn's Scroll of Shield, and the gauntlets from the bandit camp. She then buys a Scroll of Friends, casts it to increase her charisma, and goes on the biggest shopping spree of her life. Most of the items Lainey purchases here are not necessary, they're just nice to have, and, she's got 35,000-ish gold, she might as well spend it. I'll put a full list of all of her purchases on screen now, and I'll talk about the necessary items from that list as she uses them. Once she's through shopping, Lainey leaves the store and chugs an oil of speed outside. She explores as much of the city as she can, unlocking all the necessary zones for future travel. At the docks, some wacko monk mumbles the name of the wizard from before and then wanders off. Lainey steps inside the Iron Throne headquarters, chit-chats with someone he claims not to have the time for it, and then leaves, concluding her investigation. On her way to unlock the Ducal Palace, Lainey realizes she's been hauling Czar's dead body this entire time and dumps it on the ground, much to the disgust of a passerby. After being denied entrance to the palace, Lainey heads southeast to make a very, very important pit stop. Okay, so this is the only part of the run where Lainey goes rogue and pursues something other than revenge. It's a personal tradition of mine to visit my favorite NPC on every playthrough of the game. Her name is Maple Willow Aspen, and she can be found on the 2nd floor of the Blade and Stars Tavern in southeast Baldur's Gate. If you speak to Maple Willow Aspen, she goes on a very long and angry rant about how she hates her name and doesn't want to hear any jokes about it. If you try to speak to her about something else, it becomes clear that the only thing she knows how to talk about is her name. If you ever choose the dialogue options asking her about her name or if her parents were fond of trees, she will say, "Eep," and then spontaneously combust.
Oh, you bet. Fine, Andy.
With the tradition observed, Lainey runs off to the Flaming Fist compound to talk with Scar, who's arranged a meeting with Grand Duke Eltan. Lainey shares her juicy, top-secret investigation notes with the Duke, who agrees to pay her a large sum of money if she will return to Candlekeep to sit in on a meeting with the leaders of the Iron Throne. She accepts, concluding Chapter 5 and beginning Chapter 6.
Your journey has come full circle. It will still be a pleasure to return to your former home.
Chapter 6 is the fastest chapter with the least action. It usually takes a lot more time to complete as there are some really powerful magic items to collect, but Lainey breezes through it in pursuit of her goal. Lainey chugs another oil of speed and then walks inside Candlekeep, heading for the main castle. A traveler called Catterley tries to stop her and chat with her, but at this point her mind is too addled from drug abuse and lack of sleep to hold a coherent conversation. Lainey runs upstairs and talks to a friendly monk named Kovares, who gives her a ring of protection that Gorion left for her in his will. Lainey admires the ring for a moment and then, satisfied with her visit, walks out the front door. A guard outside accuses her of murdering the leaders of the Iron Throne and arrests her. Before she even has time to nap, a wizard named Ulront formally accuses Lainey of the murders, claiming that a monk named Kovares found a ring belonging to Shadow Thief assassins on her person. Lainey would be sent to Baldur's Gate for punishment, but Tethtoril comes and informs her of the ruse. Kovares is not who he seems. He's actually Saravok, the big bad guy who murdered Gorion, who snuck into Candlekeep by reversing his name. Tethtoril frees Lainey by teleporting her to an underground library, where she must find her way to the surface and back to Baldur's Gate. Lainey is teleported next to a bookshelf with a scroll of Shadow Door in it, which she immediately grabs and then casts on herself. Now invisible, Lainey zooms through the secret library, avoiding a bunch of doppelgangers, some bounty hunters, and even some basilisks on her way to the surface. Once free, she steels herself for the journey back to Baldur's Gate, where she will finally confront Saravok, concluding Chapter 6 and beginning Chapter 7.
Quite the challenge. You have been accused of murder. You must find Saravok.
Chapter 7 is the final chapter of the game, and it is a certified doozy. The goal is not as simple as it sounds. To complete the chapter and win the game, you must kill Saravok, but there are several difficult fights and dungeons to explore before you can make it to him. Lainey needs to be very deliberate with her resources now, as any mistakes here will doom her run to failure. Lainey starts off poorly with a random encounter. These bandits all have bows, and without armor, Lainey would usually become Swiss cheese, but a quick invisibility potion saves her and lets her leave unharmed. Back in Baldur's Gate, Lainey has to travel to an underground brothel called the Undercellar. Saravok is at the palace, and the only people who have invitations to spare are down here. She chugs her last oil of speed before running through the sewers to get to the secret entrance. Once inside, she hypes up Negi, getting him ready for some mischief. Lainey drops almost all of her inventory onto the ground, leaving 4 potions of Master Thievery in her backpack. She lets Negi loose and commands him to pickpocket the potions off of her. Once he successfully grabs them, Lainey saves and immediately reloads the game. Doing so lets Negi equip the potions in his hotbar, and drink them to increase his thieving skills. While Negi drinks his potions, Lainey grabs her stuff back off the floor and starts doing lines with the courtesans in the back. Negi needs at least 4 rounds to get up to full power, which gives Lainey time to buff up with a potion of Storm Giant Strength, a potion of Absorption, a potion of Heroism, and a potion of Invulnerability. Once Negi consumes all 4 of his thievery potions, he crawls onto Slythe, one of Saravok's buddies, and begins to rummage through his pockets. With his beefed-up pickpocketing skill, Negi gets 4 consecutive successes, robbing Slythe blind and walking back over to Lainey. Lainey pets her good little ferret and gets all the stuff it stole, most notably an invitation to the palace. Lainey rushes out of the Undercellar with her party invite and goes to find her +1.
Fine and dandy. Oh, we've done so much today. Maybe.
Quail rejoins the party, understandably upset about being left outside for 2 days. Lainey gives Quail a scroll of haste as compensation before casting haste herself, beelining for the palace.
Gotcha. Right.
Hello?
You must gather your party before
I
venturing
serve the
forth.
flaming fist.
You granted?
When they arrive at the palace, Lainey turns up by summoning a bunch of animals in the parlor. Quail hastes them for good measure. Lainey gives Quail a wand of sleep and prepares a scroll of greater malison and a wand of sleep for herself. They send the animals out into the ballroom, and Quail posts up at the door while Lainey goes to bust a move on the dance floor.
What do you need? There's none
What's the
better.
story? Yep.
As all the what with what and the perhaps well, shut up.
The nobles inside don't take kindly to the intrusion and turn into greater doppelgangers in a fit of rage. Laney's greater malazan lowers their saving throws, making them extra susceptible to the Wands of Sleep.
Tell me.
Laney and Quail spam their wands until all the doppelgangers are unconscious, letting the hasted animals and the powerful dukes of Baldur's Gate make short work of it.
Can I help?
Hey,
As the mosh pit grows, Quail casts a scroll of protection from fire on Laney, increasing her fire resistance by 50% for the remainder of the run. His purpose now served, Quail is kicked from the party once more, left to mingle with the sleepy doppelgangers for eternity. Laney moves out into the ballroom to help clean up the mess she made.
not a problem.
Duke Belt starts to read out loud some incriminating Iron Throne smutty fanfic, but Sarabok gets embarrassed and attacks him. Body blocked by guards and summons, Sarabok kills a few things to show off how cool he is, and then teleports away with the help of a mage lackey.
Come as you will. You cannot hide forever.
Thankfully, Duke Belt is part Bloodhound and is able to track Sarabok to the Thieves Guild immediately. He teleports Laney after him, so she can pursue Sarabok to the bitter end.
Not a problem.
Laney makes an entirely unnecessary visit to Black Lily's shop, where she buys more oils of speed to fuel her onset addiction. She then heads down into the labyrinth beneath the guild, the final dungeon of the game. Some dude on the ground talks with her for a bit, but she dismisses him before casting the spells necessary to conquer the maze. Laney opens with her Scroll of Clairvoyance, revealing the entire maze's layout. This allows her to just click the door at the end of the passage to auto-navigate through. Next, she casts Invisibility, protecting her from all of the monsters within. She runs past some oozes before drinking a potion of fire resistance, which stacks with the scroll Quail cast earlier to make her 100% immune to fire damage. Running past more enemies, she chugs another absorption potion, making her 100% immune to electrical damage just in time to run over the fireball and lightning bolt traps. Lastly, she casts Shield, making her immune to the magic missile trap further down the hall. With all her immunities in place, she presses on boldly, clearing the maze in record time. Now there's a really big fight with a group of high-level adventurers here, but Laney skips past them to get to the good part. The Temple of Baal, where Sarabok and his biggest, baddest goons await. Laney once again clears her inventory of everything except the Wand of Paralysis and the Wand of Monster Summoning, before releasing Negi again. Still souped up on thievery potion juice, Negi steals both wands and some of Laney's gold. Laney quick saves again, reloading to allow Negi to dual wield the sticks, which somehow he's qualified to use despite not being a mage.
Need me?
Laney falls back on bad habits while Negi goes forth. He has one mission, to stun Sarabok with the Wand of Paralysis. Sarabok has a 25% chance to fail the save against the wand, and if he does, he's stunned for a whole minute. All Negi has to do is land it, and this run is as good as done.
What's the story?
With exceptional luck, Negi lands the wand and immediately follows up with a monster summon. Laney casts invisibility on herself, moving them to land some backstabs. Sarabok's lackeys won't attack unless given the order, except for Samaj, whose name is just James spelled backwards.
Tell me. Fine and dandy.
Lainey waits for a monster to deactivate the trap on the back of the platform before moving in with Hull's longsword. Negi just keeps button mashing his monster wand, overwhelming Sarevok with bodies and killing him in an official record time. Digging around with tools like Near Infinity and EE Keeper, I recorded Lainey's final save time as 12 days, 18 hours, and 28 minutes, with the in-game clock 7 hours ahead reading 13 days, 1 hour, and 28 minutes. With a total of 12 kills including Sarevok, Lainey beat Baldur's Gate in precisely 94,044 in-game seconds. With Sarevok's death, Lainey's journey comes to a close, her purpose fulfilled. Big shoutouts to Grand Zero, Sarevok57, and J. Mary for running this category with me, as well as to Negi, who has now been usurped. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it, I hope you enjoyed this challenge as much as I enjoyed playing it, and I hope to see you all again for my challenge runs yet to come. Stay tuned, things are going to get pretty wild around here.